Back for another exciting edition of Six Rings and Football Things. Andy Hart here alongside, or along digital side, Mike Kadlick, weei.com. Patriots preseason, thank God, is over. It's in the books. The Patriots lose to the Titans 23-7 in Tennessee on Friday night. Elsewhere on the Six Rings feed, there is a post-game show you can listen to where Fitzy and I talked about that game in detail. Probably a little too much negativity from me, but I was recency bias. I was emotional. I was angry. It was midnight, and I lashed out.
I'm curious. I didn't get a chance to listen. I was cooking up my 53-man roster projection into the night. I didn't have EEI on in the background because it would have just distracted me. Why so negative? I'm curious. Like, I know they lost. Okay, they lost. The offensive line looked bad. There were some negative things, but I thought there was a decent amount to take away, too. Like, Marte Mapu looked awesome. Kayshon Boutte's a lock. Like, Calvin Munson had a day, so I don't know.
Defensively, there was plenty of what I like to call those energy, effort, and attitude players. I thought there was a lot of that. From Ronnie Perkins to Marte Mapu to Calvin Munson to Sam Roberts. Absolutely. Defensively, there was some fun. This was more of a totality. It kind of annoyed me that no one played at all, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And I know everybody's like, oh, well, the offensive line is banged up. Yeah, well, it's going to get banged up at some point during the season, too. You could have had 3 starters out there. Well, we'll get into that because I don't know if I still consider Riley Reif a consideration as a starter. But so is there anything that says you couldn't go out with Bailey Zappi and the receivers and give them some work together in case Bailey Zappi has to play with Kendrick Bourne and Devontae Parker? Like, this whole idea, I think this was the most laissez-faire preseason I can ever remember. I thought it was the least productive. The whole week annoyed me when they went from joint practices to lame-ass practices to not playing in the preseason game. If you made me predict right now, I was thinking about this. You may hear this again on the Sunday Fitzy and Hart program on WEEI. If you made me predict right now, more likely Patriots upset the Eagles or Patriots get rolled by 40 in the opener, give me Patriots rolled by 40. Yeah. Like, I don't feel good about this team right now. I do not feel good about this team right now. I'm sorry. I don't know how you can. And I think
just because they haven't put in so you're right. Like, they did. They went from having to go down to Tennessee, have 2 hard-nosed 2-hour joint practices, 400 plays. You would think they would have came back, and you're kind of right. And I didn't think about it this way until we're going back and forth here. But they did nothing last
Nothing.
week. Those 2 practices were nothing.
Nope.
It was walk-through pace. I don't think even the second day, only half the guys were in full pads.
Yep.
They didn't do much, and then to go out there, so maybe they're not as prepared for Philly as they'd want to be. But
I got into it with some people on Twitter because they're all itzy and defensive. Yeah, so it definitely swayed me a little bit too. That comment from Mike Tomlin, "You got to spar before you box," kind of thing. And so I tweeted out a couple old Belichick quotes about football players play football, and the only way to get ready to play football is by playing football. And you know who retweeted the Mike Tomlin quote and said Bill Parcells used to say this? Was Mike Lombardi. Because you know who else used to say it? Bill Belichick. Except he apparently doesn't say it anymore. He apparently doesn't care about getting ready and playing football and sparring and physicality and all that crap. And I'm sorry, just because Mike Onwenu and Cole Strange aren't available, the whole rest of the team has to shut down? That makes no freaking sense to me.
No, I get it, but I also see the other side where it's like, okay, this game, win or lose, doesn't matter. So why are you going to?
No, it's not about the score, not about winning and losing. It's about competing and getting ready.
Okay, so Mac Jones, who Bailey Zappi went out last night and was sacked 4 times, fumbled 3 times. We'll get into Zappi's awful performance outside of the offensive line, but you really want to subject your starting quarterback to 4 sacks like that, getting those when the win or lose doesn't matter.
So don't put Mac out there. Put Zappi with some other first-team players. See how that goes. I think this was just laissez-faire. And I should say, Six Rings and Football Things presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I have more energy. I still have more anger. You know what this would lead me? I'm going to use a comparison. Probably a bad comparison, and people will get all pissy. So when I ran a marathon once, I rolled like 10 years ago. So I rolled my ankle. I stepped on a piece of bad pavement 2 weeks before the marathon. Was black and blue from toes to upper shin. So that was bad, right? And it probably wasn't ideal for the marathon. I still ran it and finished it, whatever. So if the next year training for the marathon, I probably shouldn't train because I rolled my ankle before the marathon. So I'll be safe if I don't train. Except you know what? If I don't train, I'm going to get my ass kicked on marathon day because I'm not going to be ready to run a marathon. That's my comparison to the New England Patriots. I think
I would just open your eyes when you run.
It was like 5 a.m. It was freaking dark out. I didn't see it. You get the point. I
do get the point.
Okay, so let's move on because this is not a game recap podcast. This is not even a preseason recap podcast. The reason Mike Kadlick is here is because he posted his final 53-man roster projection on weei.com this morning in the hours after the preseason finale. I have not done one, but we're going to sit down here and we're going to kind of come together, meeting of the minds, and try to just hash out some of the conversations, some of the competitive positions, because I said to Mike before we came on the air, I quickly sat down and jotted down guys I like at every position, guys I think that are on the roster at every position. And I believe my number was 48. I just easily wrote down 48 names. So that means basically in my head anyway, there's 5 roster spots that are kind of up for grabs and I know that because in my 48, that includes 2 tight ends, 2 running backs. Like I'm thin. I know there's a couple places where I'm probably going to add a body. So we are going to go through Mike's version. He's going to read his version from online. Then I'm going to comment on that. We're going to have a little bit of debate and try to hash out where maybe things will go with Bill Belichick. Now, we should remind everybody, Tuesday, 4 p.m. is final cut downs. Has to be in by then. The cuts will begin to trickle in at any time. They could happen while we're recording this podcast on a Saturday afternoon. So if you hear some things later, we're not idiots. It's just they're happening in real time. We're recorded, blah, blah, blah. They have to get down to 53 players. Anyone they want on IR that they would like to later return has to be on the original 53-man roster. If somebody goes on IR at the cutdowns, they are lost for the season. Their season is over.
Yeah, I keep seeing just put Tyquan on IR. Just put Tyquan. It's like you can't do it. He's got to make the team first. Right.
You have to wait until Wednesday to do that. Yeah. You have to put him on the team first. Another gray area or issue is the non-football injury list or non-football illness list, I guess, with Calvin Anderson. He could stay on that. So he could be in the picture on that list for later return. Other guys that would be in that consideration that people want to play games with, whether it's Malik Cunningham, Kayshon Boutte. If you cut a player and a young player, not Nick Folk. If you cut Nick Folk is a free agent immediately. The old Lawyer Malloy cut down issue type thing. He could sign elsewhere immediately. But if you cut Malik Cunningham, he has to go through waivers. He has to clear waivers. He could be claimed by somebody. If somebody claims him, they have to keep him on their active roster. They can't then put him on their practice squad. So some of those lower end young players, that would be a consideration. Any other minutia, tidbits, or rules I didn't?
I don't think so. Those guys have to be on the active roster for what, 3 weeks? I think.
I believe it's 3 weeks if you claim a guy.
Yeah.
So, for example, the example we've used, if the Arizona Cardinals claim Malik Cunningham after the Patriots cut him, he has to stay on their active roster for 3 weeks. Maybe they're a team that would do that. I don't know. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the obvious position, the quarterback position, where I wrote down 2 names. Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. How many names did you write down?
I also have Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi.
Even though Zappi was crappy.
He was. And that's kind of how I wrote it. I was like, it's clear that Mac is the starter. It's clear that Zappi's the backup. And Zappi's lucky that Trace McSorley is that much worse than him because he did not show anything, in my mind, this preseason, this summer, that proves that he can be like a long-term backup in this league. He really wasn't good. He has no comfortability in O'Brien's offense. And again, I know he was behind that makeshift offensive line, so you give him a little bit of a pass, I guess. But even then, he's fumbling when he gets hit. And I know I'm not trying to turn this into the crap on Zappi hour, but at the end of the day, I think it's 2 quarterbacks. It's Mac and Zappi. It's clear who's the starter. And then as far as Malik Cunningham, look, I think, and I know you've kind of talked me into this, and I started to agree with it from what we saw just in practice and in the preseason games. Like, he's not Taysom Hill. As much as we want him to be, he's not a tight end. He can't like run through guys. He's not a good wide receiver.
Terrible.
So if you want to bring him back after cuts, go for it. But he's not worth the 4 gadget plays a game to put on your 53. So I don't know who's going to claim him. He may go claimed, but the best way to get him is cut him in practice squad, in my opinion. So 2 quarterbacks.
As I wrote on Twitter, I think he's PS QB1, practice squad QB1, where over there he'll also play DB and do other things. He uses athleticism as a practice player. So we both have 2. Let's go to the running back position. This is where I think the debate begins. What does your running back position look like?
I have 4.
Oh,
yes, I have. Okay, so
no, I need to fill it out, but I started
right.
with 2.
Yeah, and your 2 is Ramondre and Zeke, obviously.
Yes.
So my other 2 are Pierre Strong, who I thought played well last night, and I have Ty Montgomery in the running back room on the active roster. I think, I do. I think that if he played last night, that would have been more of a sign where it's like, okay, he's fighting for a roster spot. But the fact that he was off the field, not dressed, I know he's coming back from injury, but I just think the fact that they're trying to keep him healthy, I don't think they're now just going to go ahead and cut him. I think they like him more than we like him. He reminds me of like Jelani Tabai of last season, where everyone has him cut and all of a sudden he's on the team. And I know it's different with injury, but I just think they have a place for him on offense. So I think it's Ramondre, Zeke, Pierre Strong, and then Ty Montgomery finds his way on the active roster as well. That could be an IR candidate too.
So the only guy who scores a touchdown in the final preseason game doesn't get to make the team? I mean,
no, yeah, Kevin Harris does not. I'm sorry, I know that's your boy, but
nah, I'm kind of off him. You know what he does too much? Pitter patters. Too much pitter pattering in the backfield. You're a beast of a man. You have thighs the size of my waist. Run people over. Don't pitter patter and look for a freaking hole. JJ can pitter patter. You should thunder through that hole. So yeah, I'm off. Kevin Harris is cut.
Yeah, a lot of when I posted my projection on Twitter this morning, a lot of pushback for not having JJ Taylor on there.
Well, he is so likable. He's the perfect preseason player.
But it's been like this for, like you said, that's the perfect thing. It's been like this every last week of August. It's why isn't JJ Taylor on your roster? Where's JJ Taylor? He's got to be there. I don't see it.
So I am going to say, I don't think Ty Montgomery makes the roster. I think he gets cut. In terms of playing, not playing last night, I don't know his full health status. So the first day back, remember, on Tuesday, he went to the upper field halfway through the practice. So I don't know if he's even fully healthy where he's at. So I'm going to say no to Ty Montgomery. I'm going to say no to Kevin Harris, my guy. Bring him back on the practice squad if you want. I don't think you'll have any trouble getting him through waivers. No. I am going to put Pierre Strong on the roster as my 3rd running back, and I'm going to put JJ Taylor on the practice squad. And if you have Kevin Harris and JJ Taylor on the practice squad, you're a call up away. You have 3 on game day if they're healthy. The 3 that we have on the roster: Stevenson, Zeke, and Strong.
Taylor,
go from there.
Taylor and Harris will clear waivers.
Yeah.
I don't know if Pierre Strong would. That's why you have to keep him.
Yeah, and I don't know that Pierre Strong is good. I don't know that Pierre Strong is anything yet.
Right. But I still think, again, you risk losing him to another team if you cut him, because again, he's in his 2nd year. He's fast.
Well, that's what I would say. People will look back at the speed and say, "Oh, let's see if we can do something with that." So I give him the nod. I don't feel great about it. I'm not sure I want him playing in a regular season game.
Right.
So the need to sign Zeke is even more obvious after you signed Zeke, in my mind. Like, it's like you could have never gotten by without bringing in Zeke. Like,
that was a need. That was a need, and I'm glad they filled it. And he looks good. And again, if those 2 can stay healthy, the 3rd running back will hardly play.
Right. Yeah, and that's true. So you cross your fingers, stay healthy. Tight end position. Yeah. Who you got?
I got 2. I got Henry and Gesicki.
So you have 1.5, because one of them has a red shirt on right now,
and the other one didn't dress last night because he got hurt the other day at practice.
So you have one. You have 2 halves.
Yeah. I actually have 1 tight end, and they're half of each other. So last week after Gesicki's injury, I put a 3rd tight end. I had Sokol on the roster as the 3rd guy, just for health concerns. But I think with Gesicki at least coming back in the jersey, and Henry, I think that's just precautionary. I think he's going to be fine. I think that any one of Firkser, Lumpkin, Sokol, or Scotty Washington, you can bring back on your practice squad and essentially have that 3rd tight end that way. I don't think you're going to lose any of them. And I also don't think any of the 4 are that much better than the other one. I know they're different. Like, Scotty's a receiver, and, Firkser and Sokol are more blocking guys, and Lumpkin too. But point being, I think there's more needs elsewhere where you can get by with keeping the 2 tight ends. and then bring in another guy on the practice squad. So I don't think there's really a necessity to have a third guy here.
For the here and the now, I agree with you. I think Sokol would be the third
I
if
agree.
there is a third. And it was funny because the WBZ cameras last night, I think right before the end of the game, was showing Sokol and Ferkser kind of like fist bumping, almost like, we did our best. Now we'll find out whether it was good enough. It almost like I'm reading into it. And I think you're like, is any of those guys worth a roster spot when you can probably keep them around on the practice squad? And then if Gesicki isn't healthy, you got to call up Sokol or whatever. Like you make a move because it's a thin position. Like tight end is part of my house of cards crew. Like that's a position where you're already banged up. Both guys have some injury history heading into but you swayed me. I'm just
Like I look at so there's obviously the six guys: Gesicki, Henry, Ferkser, Lumpkin, Sokol, Scotty Washington. Like those final four, I don't see any of them leaving and being claimed. I think you will have your choice of the four to bring back. And if Ferkser gets claimed by Atlanta because he's worked with Arthur Smith before, right? Okay, then you just bring back Sokol or vice versa. Like you're gonna be able to get another guy back.
I feel like there's probably, I don't know who the name is. There's probably the Sokol that's going to get cut by Washington. And if somebody takes my Sokol, well, I'll take that guy's Sokol and put him in my and have him up to speed close enough. Yeah. I mean, if any of these guys play real snaps, you're porked anyway. It's a bad sign. You're going down a bad road. Okay. Wide receiver. I'm going to give you my list first since you've been going first. Sure. I think they keep all of them. Bourne, Thornton, Parker, Juju, Douglas, Booty, with the one caveat that by Wednesday at 4, Thornton could be on IR. I don't know what his health status will be moving forward. But I think for the Tuesday at 4 cut downs, I think they keep all 4 of those guys and then figure out the health and numbers after.
Yeah, I think this is probably the room that everybody's looking forward to hearing about, and it's probably going to be the quickest conversation.
The easiest, yeah.
It's all 6. The one was Booty going into last night, and everyone thought that last night was going to be massive for him. I think they made their decision before the game that he's on our team. He played the one drive, he had the one kick return, and he was done. It was like, get off the field, you're our 6th guy. So yeah, I think with the health issues with Thornton, I think they need 6, and even Douglas too. But Douglas is obviously on this team. I feel like there's no way they cut him.
Oh yeah, Douglas, I have felt for a while was a lock for this team.
Yeah.
And obviously we're cutting Cunningham if you consider him a wide receiver. He's not on the roster in that form. The Douglas thing that we've talked about from this past week in our practice recaps is the fact that he got banged up, and now, I don't believe like the Boston Globe does. You have a log jam at wide receiver. Like you have bodies, but it's not a log jam.
There was also like a log jam last year, but it was because of guys like Lil Jordan Humphrey and like Christian Wilkins. Like it's guys that
they stink.
It's the 6th. Yeah, it's the 5th and 6th guys. It's not like there's a receiver problem, but it's not because they're all so good. It's because you just need to fill the room and they're all the same.
Because none of them are so good. That's the problem.
Yeah. And I just think there's a huge gap between Booty and then your Thyrick Pitts and Raleigh Webbs of the world.
Absolutely. And the one thing I will say, like pro for the crew, is certainly Douglas and Booty are draft picks. Like they should have upside. They should have potential. You want to develop them. You want to spend more time with them. Whereas Christian Wilkerson, for example, like he had kind of plateaued as what he was. Like he's a 4A player, like good enough to be around in camp. He can play in a pinch, but he's not a developmental receiver. These guys you hope are developmental, rotational, at least receivers. Okay. Offensive line.
Yeah.
How about we cut them all and just don't have a line?
No.
David Andrews goes out there just for snapping. The rest of y'all get the hell out of my face because you suck.
We'll just reset. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to hit it?
So let me give you my list of, and this is not, I know I need bodies here.
Yeah.
This was my list of, I think these guys are on the team.
Okay.
David Andrews, Cole Strange, Mike Onwenu, Trent Brown, Sidi So, and Antonio Mafi. Okay. Those are my 6, and you're probably looking at adding a minimum of 2 more bodies and maybe a maximum of 4 more bodies. That would probably be the range. So Riley Reef, I think, is interesting. A, he got hurt. I don't know his status. B, I don't know exactly why he was playing last night. C, I have not been overly impressed with the journeyman who was asked to learn or bump inside, not learn. I guess he's played it, but go to a new position. It would not stun me if they cut him. If they just, or maybe he retires. Maybe he does them a favor and retire. I don't know. Probably shouldn't though, because then the money will be. Don't retire. Make them cut you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what? You had 6 and then a couple maybes. I think I have those 6. I have 10 total because of what happened last night with Reef. It's like, okay,
that would fill out my roster. So I have right now, but we haven't done defense and special teams.
Right.
But with my open slots on the O line, if you turn my 6 into 10, that would be my 53-man roster. I would have no more room at the other positions as we play out. Okay, so give me the next 4 you have.
So it's those 6, and then I have Reef there for now.
Yeah,
because I think he'll be there. Unless he tore his ACL and they have to, IR.
I don't think so.
I don't either.
At worst, I know the sort of speculation was maybe an MCL injury could be the result of the play.
Okay. So I have Reef. Right now I have Jake Andrews, who was a 4th-round pick, depth piece on the inside. I find it hard to believe they're going to cut a 4th-rounder. Connor McDermott as well, another depth piece who has been hurt. But
what's his status?
I don't know, but that's the thing. It's like they need Reef, they need McDermott. They're going to have tackles on the roster outside of just Brown and City So and Onwenu if he goes out there. So like it's just you need depth there. And the three guys that you signed for depth this year in Calvin Anderson, Reef, and McDermott, they're all either hurt or Anderson's on NFI. So
right.
It's tough, but you just need bodies. So I have McDermott as well. And then the 10th guy I have is Chasen Hines. I think and it's kind of backwards the way I justified it. So hear me out. But Riley Reef is hurt. He was playing guard. Onwenu is back. You kick Onwenu to the outside. Now you need more guard depth. And then you need to bring in a guy like Chasen Hines, who I thought played really well last night, especially in the run. He was blowing guys over. I think their needs are so much more on the outside than the inside. I think the inside's fine. I think Hines is pretty good. Then it does kind of get repetitive with, Mafi and Hines and Andrews, and you got to pick one. But I have them all for now because they need all the depth they need all the help they can get. So I have 10 offensive linemen. And I think at least to start, you have these 10, and then you start to shift guys around, whether it's, Anderson's back and then McDermott gets cut. And there's like the 53 is not going to be the 53 all season. That's obvious. But that's what I have for now is those 10.
Okay. So the Jake Andrews, I was forgetting. Not going to be because I believe my friend Paul Perillo, I don't believe they've ever cut a healthy 4th-round rookie.
Yeah.
So I'll slide Jake Andrews on.
Okay.
I wish I knew Connor McDermott's status a little bit better because I think he would be in the mix in that. So I'm putting him as my next guy. So that gets me to, let me see, that gets me to 50 and 51. Those are those 2 players. So now it's, do I have a roster spot for Reef? Do I have one for Hines? I think I would just go Reef there for the experience, the versatility, the reps. I don't feel great about putting him on the roster. I will not be stunned if I see Riley Reef is gone or Riley Reef's on IR and lost for the year. Maybe they give him one of those veteran golden parachutes. This is your last paycheck. You're on IR. Don't call us ever again. Clean out your locker when you leave today because you're not coming back kind of thing. So I'm going to stay with that. So that gets me up to 9 offensive linemen with Reef, McDermott, and Andrews added. Hines is an interesting guy because I do think he has potential. I do think he has talent. But these are the tough ones. Like, I don't know if another team would freaking claim Chasen Hines or not. Like, how the bleep should I know? Is Matt Patricia going to be like, hey, we need to claim this guy? I was there last year. He's a pretty good developer. Who knows? But we'll stick with that. So let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. And so do you have that number? How many offensive players is that? Did you tally that up?
I didn't, but I can quickly. 10, 12 plus 6 is 18, plus 4 is 22, plus 2 is 24. I have 24 offensive players.
24 offensive players. Okay. So I would have 23 because I have one less offensive line.
Yep, correct.
Okay, so let's work on the defensive line. I am going to give you my list
Okay.
It's a long one, and there's a guy in here. There's a guy in here that
Aha.
could be controversial. Wise, Barmore, Godchow, White, Equale, Roberts, Guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 defensive linemen I keep there.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, so what do you got? So this might get
I'll
weird. I don't
say
know.
mine because you're gonna go off of it. I have 6 guys.
Okay.
I have Barmore, Aquale, Godshaw, Roberts, Keon White, Dietrich Wise. I don't have Lawrence Guy.
This has become a popular one, and I don't know, and I don't totally disagree with it.
Right.
Um,
I think that the contract situation, I think that the fact that it's been floated out there by none other than our friend Mike Reese.
who floats nothing.
Yeah.
He
It's
always
telling.
has informed flotations.
Yeah. He also said Malik Cunningham's on his roster. So that's kind of that kind of got me nervous, but that's Reese being Reese as well. So yeah, I think Guy could be traded. I think he could be cut. I look at, and I wrote about this as well on weei.com the other day. They brought in that Marquand McCall.
Yep.
They had to cut him. They then had I can't think of the guy's name. Another
Worley.
Yes, yeah, Worley in for a visit. So like they're doing work on the defensive line, and whether that's because they want to add to Lawrence Guy or whether they want to get rid of Lawrence Guy, bring in a guy like Sam Roberts and Apollo and let them build and what have you. They're doing something. Something's going on the defensive line. And I think it's because they don't see Lawrence Guy in their future. So I have him off.
Yeah, I like Lawrence Guy, first of all. I think he's been an underrated. There were times I thought you could say he was their best defensive player in recent years.
Yeah.
And I do think it would be unfortunate leadership wise. I do think it would be unfortunate if the contract, he wanted to be paid a little more, so now you're pissed at him or whatever. The trade idea is intriguing to me. He would be a guy that I could see them trading. So he goes to a place where he gets to still play and, have another season under his belt as an 8. I think he's in year like 13 or so. It's like, he's had a long freaking career.
Yeah.
And maybe that is, so that's what I'll put. I'm going to keep him on my roster, but a trade of Lawrence Guy, I don't think is outside the realm of possibility. So so Carl Davis would be one of the names that doesn't make it. Jeremiah Farms, Justice Tavai.
That's who I have. Davis, Guy, Farms, and Tavai I have off.
And Davis is I don't know how valuable he is. I believe when he arrived in New England a couple of years ago, the first time, Bill said, they asked, what did you like about him? And he said he was available. So maybe he thinks he will remain available if they cut him.
Right.
Okay, so I went to linebacker next.
Okay, me too.
Which I have
and I don't really split up like edge and edge defender versus on ball off. Like I have them all together in one group.
Okay. Yeah, me too. Except I didn't have Bentley, so I had to add a number. I'm now up to 52, I believe, on my roster.
Oh, it's getting close.
It is getting close. So can I give mine? Yes. Or you want to give? I'll give mine.
No, go for it.
So Judon Uche, obvious. Yep. Bentley, obviously. Who would forget to put him on there?
Yeah, right.
Idiot. Perkins, Jennings, Tavai, Mapu. Yep.
Perkins. Okay.
I liked what I saw from him last night.
Okay.
Except for the vomit. Don't vomit on the field all the time. It's cool for once. If you do it every game, it's weird.
So do you have guys like Chris Board and Calvin Munson listed as specialists?
I do.
Okay.
So I have 7 specialists with those guys included.
Okay. Same. I have them listed as linebackers right now, but I'm going to shift them to specialists.
For our numbers purposes.
For our numbers and the discussion. So I also have Bentley. Oh, well, no, mine's different. I have Bentley, Jennings, Mapu, Judon, Tavai, Uche.
So you don't have Perkins.
I don't have Perkins.
Guy threw it all out on the line, and you didn't give him any credit for it.
Yeah, that is correct. I think Calvin Munson did, and I think he earned a spot. And I know that's you can have both, but yeah, no, I think too little, too late for Ronnie Perkins.
Now he is a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
He is a 3rd-round pick that at the time it was widely considered he was the personal pick of one Steve Belichick. Mm-hmm. Just throwing that out there. Steve Belichick, of course, is one of not only the co-defensive coordinators of this team, he's also the son of Bill Belichick. So
yes.
would like to think his voice carries some weight in the building.
Yeah.
No, he's definitely a guy that's on the bubble. Like, and
Right.
whether he did enough, whether it was not enough, too little, too late, whatever. Now, as a third round pick who's been on IR both years, I do wonder, as a third round pick, that's a pretty high pick.
Yeah, it is.
Would they fear him not getting through waivers if they wanted to keep using him just because a team says, well, he was a third round pick a couple years ago and he hasn't failed. He's been hurt.
Right.
So maybe he gets healthy and we can turn him into something. So I'm going to stick with Perkins on my roster. I think. So that leaves safety. You can go safety.
We'll go safety. Okay. I have the Fab Four. Nice and easy. Duggar, Mills, Peppers, Phillips.
Wait, I thought people wanted to cut Mills and or Phillips.
Yeah, I thought that was a discussion, but at the end of the day, I just think they're too valuable to the room. Josh Bledsoe, excuse me, had another good year, another good preseason. Last year, he had a good preseason and made the 53, and then did nothing in the regular season, nothing. So he was inactive for 13 or 14 games. I think he had one tackle. So I just think it's great. He kind of reminds me of the defensive JJ Taylor in a way. You show out when you get reps.
He's a 4A player. He's good in the preseason, and in a pinch, we'll put you in the regular season, but you're not worth keeping.
Yeah, really. There's just no room. So I think they could. I think he could be claimed by a team. That wouldn't surprise me. But I don't think it's worth keeping him in the room, especially you have a guy like Mapu too, who is a linebacker, but you can put him at safety, or in a pinch, you can put John Jones at safety. Or there's so much going on in that defensive backfield. I just think that Bledsoe's expendable. So Duggar, Mills, Peppers, Phillips.
So I have the same four. I know there's been some sexy surprise cut talk at this position. Like the Mills part, there were some weird reps in the preseason, playing time. I don't see how you could possibly cut him. He would be as surprising a cut as I've seen in a long, I don't see the reasoning behind it. It would be illogical. I think it would be bad for the team. So I'll stick with the four. Cornerback position, where I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Gonzo, your rookie, first round pick. Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones, who was one of the worst players on the field last night, in my opinion, sucked at everything. Could not cover the run, the pass, was pitiful. Miles Bryant, and I know people hate to see that name, but it is what it is. Marcus Jones and Isaiah Bolden makes my team.
Same.
Now, his health is obviously, and I will say, people wondering about his health, the latest I recall seeing from him on social media was prayer hands and up graph. So I'm assuming that means good news, trending in the right direction, something like that.
As bad as it looked, the only thing I've heard is concussion.
Right.
So it was bad. He got knocked out. But I think he'll. I don't think they're going to IR him for the season. I think you put him on IR, you get him on the roster, you IR him, and then you can use him. And I think he'll be ready to go. So
okay, so they have 6 bodies.
Good, yeah.
I mean, I thought, he was trending in a very good direction before the injury, to the point where I want to say they were ISOing him throughout the broadcast and talking about him, and they had a camera on him the whole series before the injury. So, I like what I see from him. So
he's also someone who I don't know. They rep a lot of guys in different positions, special teams wise, but he was one of the best college kick returners in the nation last year.
Yeah, so, I think he will have a role on special teams.
Yeah.
And I also would throw in here, I think this is a position that could be prime for a veteran trade. If you could trade Guy for a cornerback, so my last defensive lineman for some veteran cornerback, because people question me. Some guy on Twitter was like, oh, they're not thin at corner. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? They're going to start 2 guys who have 2 combined starts between them. And John Jones has missed time. We're not really sure if John Jones, they even want him on the outside. If you want him just in the slot, I still think Marcus is a questionable cornerback at best. Miles Bryant, nobody likes him. I think this is a position, very offensive line and cornerback are both trade targets for me.
I think your House of Cards example of way of putting it is perfect, because it's not necessarily thin, but when one guy goes, the whole thing crumbles.
The whole effing thing. And if no one goes and they hit their upside, it might be pretty good. If Gonzo's a good rookie corner and Jack Jones is the good Jack Jones, and then John Jones in the slot, Marcus Jones rotates in, Miles Bryant rotates in. Okay, maybe you're pretty good. but it could fall apart quickly. So,
Yeah.
but we'll see. That looks like the 6 that we'll go with. And now special teams.
Yep.
I know the kicker has been all the talk. I'm cutting Nick Folk and telling
Me
him to
too.
stay in Foxborough, and I might call him soon. Don't sign with another team. I'll do something illegal if I have to and slide him a couple extra bucks or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I have Ryland, Behringer, Cardona, Schooler, Slater, Munson, Board.
Yep. Me too.
That's my team.
Easy.
Wow.
And I
was
will
easy.
say, yeah, seriously, we don't argue. This
No.
is good stuff. The one thing I'll say special teams wise, regarding Nick Folk is that's another guy I could see you trading for a 7th round pick.
Sure.
Get something
Especially
for him.
since, although are there veteran kickers out there? This is a totally weird aside. Did my friends and family fantasy draft last night, and like name kickers, at least in the NFL's app, which sucks. NFL, you suck. Just want to let you know, I have Ramondre Stevenson in my starting lineup, and you are projecting him to have 0.0 points on opening day. Why would he have 0 points? That makes no sense. Fix your app. You're stupid.
Yeah, that is stupid.
Anyway, rant aside. There were some kickers listed. Like, is Ryan Suckup on a team? And there were like 4 or 5 veteran kickers that were the best available kickers in their fantasy ratings were free agents. So I don't know if they, because I know places like San Francisco has been having some kicking.
Yeah, Ryan Suckup's a free agent.
Okay, so my point would be there are some maybe Folk competition in free agency if teams were to trade. But yes, Nick Folk.
San Francisco, you're right too, having trouble.
Yeah.
Dallas has trouble, and Nick Folk's from Dallas. I don't know if he'd want to go there, finish his career there, and just stay home instead of traveling to and forth New England. So that's an interesting one.
Maybe. I'm willing to take the risk, especially. I would say this as well, and I don't know if Bill can look at it this way. I'm not winning the Super Bowl this year. I'm not going to make or break my season by one missed field goal.
Right.
So I drafted Ryland for a reason. Not this year, for the next 5 years. He's my new franchise kicker. That's why I invested in him. So I'm keeping him. Like, he's my kicker. Like, I'm not okay. He may have some rookie yips or whatever along the way. I'll have to deal with that. I'm probably going to have that at cornerback too. I'm probably going to have that at other positions. Like,
and
we're a mediocre team.
To that point, the rookie yips, you're better off having them work through it than having Nick Folk breathing down his shoulder the whole time.
Right. Yeah. So I'm just all in. You have your kicker. If you did your job right, you have your kicker and your punter for the next 4, 5, 8, 10 years or whatever in these two guys. We've loved what we've seen from from Behringer.
Yeah, that dude's awesome. That dude's awesome.
Yeah, like I have no questions about him. I know Bill tried to say both jobs were competitive and that Waitman had a couple nice boots. Okay, that's fine. It's not. Behringer won the job. And in my mind, Ryland either won the job or the tie goes to the young guy that I'm developing. So either 100%. Way, he's my kicker.
Yep.
So I think what happened with me now is I believe I have one open roster spot.
Okay. Sounds good.
So I could add, this is where I could add Hines or Bill Murray, one of the offensive linemen. I could add a tight end. But if I did my math right, I ended up with 52 in our little projection. And so I could add a player. My guess would be if this were actually happened, I'd be adding Chasen Hines or one of the offensive linemen.
How many running backs did you have?
3.
3? Okay. So in theory, you could add a back, but
I could, but I don't really want to. I don't see the value in that. The place that I want bodies, especially, I don't know all the health status of all the offensive linemen. So that plays into it. So if I was going to have extra bodies, I would have.
That's exactly why I went with 10, because the health.
So what was who would you consider your toughest cut?
So I was
going to say, don't you have like last man off or whatever?
Last 3 on, last 3 off. Toughest cut, I guess Lawrence Guy, but we can go aside from that because that's just like semantics. That's not really whatever. Josh Bledsoe and Sean Wade were my other 2 last 3 off. Because especially with Sean Wade, I think he came on strong in the slot this camp. And with the question marks and the house of cards and Isaiah Bolden's injury, I kept looking at the 5 cornerbacks in Bryant, Gonzalez, and the 3 Joneses. And I kept going, and the words house of cards just kept tingling in the back of my brain. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, is it Bledsoe? Is it Wade? If you can add more, strength on the inside. And Sean Wade's pretty good. And I think he's not pretty good. He's fine. And
he's not as good as he's supposed to be, actually.
Exactly. But I think he's a guy you can continue to keep around and develop. So if he clears waivers, he'll be right back to the practice squad. So that one was tough. And then Bledsoe was another one, just because I think he's been solid and he plays special teams and he's a guy who works hard and all that stuff. So I think it's in the defensive backfield.
Okay, so yeah, I obviously didn't have a ton of tough cuts because I was kind of adding people to the roster late.
Yeah, right.
And along those lines, how many? So Bill gets his final, quote unquote, final 53, which is really your first 53.
Yeah.
I have to think there's an expectation of 3 to 5 moves in there, whether it's, an IR move, Tyquan Thornton. Okay, you're on IR. Or, that team released that tackle. We'll definitely claim him. So now you thought you made the roster as whoever you are, Chase and Hines. You're actually off the roster now.
Yeah.
I would put the number somewhere between I'll set a number at 3.5 post first 53 moves. Would you take the over or the under of 3.5 post first 53 roster moves this week?
I'm going to go over because I think the question marks at tackle with McDermott and Reef and, like you said, all that stuff. And then someone, whether it's Tyquan Thornton or Isaiah Bolden or Ty Montgomery, like someone's going to be IR'd in there. There's going to be a quick 4-game thing to get another guy on. So, yeah, I definitely say over 3.5.
Okay, so there you have it. That is Mike Cadlick's projection, but also a little sprinkling of Andy Hart's 6 rings and football things roster projection. So now this is going to be locked in. This will be posted, and people can go back and listen, and they can mock, and they can read yours on weei.com when Bill gets around to making his moves in the coming days by Tuesday at 4 p.m. Well, supposed to be by 4 p.m. Somehow the Patriots always seem to we don't know until 8 p.m. Somehow they're 4 hours later. It's like they're in California or the Pacific. Nope, you're in the Eastern time. You should have it done by 4. But the Patriots, Bill Belichick, they will make their moves. There will be listings like Calvin Anderson. There'll be who knows what could happen. It will be interesting, and we will have all the information as it comes out, as we start to get things on social media, weei.com. Check back early, check back often. And then once the roster is done, we'll be back with another 6 rings and football things. I think Fitzy will join us, probably Mike, myself, Andy Hart, and we'll break down what Bill decided to do and what some of those early post cut down moves will be. 6 rings and football things is, as always, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Bill Belichick has more work to do because he needs to do for the real world what we just did in the fake world. See, it's easy for us to cut people. He actually has to look the guy in the eye and say, you need to get out now. So, little different thing. But speaking of getting out now, he's Mike Cadlick. I'm Andy Hart. We're going to go enjoy our Saturday afternoons. Hope you enjoyed another 6 rings and football things. Download the Odyssey app. Rate, review, subscribe, and keep tuning in because guess what? Preseason's done. Now we're actually talking about real football. Let's go.
We have a whole season in front of us. Let's go, everyone. Thanks for listening.